Give me a thumbs up. And thumbs up. Yeah, great. Amazing. So this is really just thinking about facilitating intrinsic motivation and self-determination in yourself and your students. And I am always using self-determination theory for this. It's the theory I've studied my entire academic life. It's really, really worked out. This is the only magic of teaching that I know. And so we'll talk a little bit about self-determination theory. So, self-determination theory defines intrinsic motivation. It's the joy, it's the love, it's the passion. When I first found self-determination theory, I was really like, I want this for my students, but I also want it for myself and I want it for my family. I want people to engage in things because they love it, because they're passionate about it, because they're interested in it. And I want my students to engage in my classes because they want to and not because they have to. And that's interesting because I also teach in a program that I direct that has just required classes. So they have to take them, but I want them to also really want to take them. The thing about intrinsic motivation is you can't force it. You have to facilitate it. And so I have always leaned on this cognitive evaluation theory, which is a sub-theory of self-determination theory. And I call it the magic of teaching. So when I think of facilitating intrinsic motivation in my students, I'm thinking of three things. And I'm thinking of it the minute I enter my classroom. I'm thinking about how I'm going to facilitate a sense of competence in my students. I think about how I'm going to facilitate a sense of autonomy in my students. And I think about how I'm going to facilitate a sense of relatedness in my students and myself. And so we're going to take this apart a little bit and really think about where in our classrooms and in our syllabi we can do this. So again, self-determination theory defines intrinsic motivation. Cognitive evaluation theory really tells us how to facilitate it. And we will share the slides with you all too. So when I think of competence in facilitating intrinsic motivation, I am thinking about success experiences and overall positive experiences about activities. And so when I'm looking at my syllabus and when I'm looking at my classes, I'm always thinking about how to have the beginning of my class be an entrance way to what they're going to learn, but also to allow them at the very beginning of class to really experience a feeling of success. So I do this by like easy do nows, or I do this by an easy icebreaker. I want them immediately to be drawn in to feel competent in the place where they are. I also really do high engagement activities because I want my students to feel overall positive feelings about them. I want my students to leave the class happy. And so I want to just think about, and everyone could go chat. I like an engaged sort of lunchtime seminar. How do you facilitate in your classes a sense of competence in your students? So I'm going to stop the share for a minute. We're just going to do a 30-second share. And no worries. This is a come as you are and leave when you want. So how do you facilitate a sense of competence in your students from the very first day?
This is Anya, and I can say that we're chatting live, right? Not putting it in the chat. Okay,
Yeah, however you want to do it, you do it. And if people want to put it in the chat, pop it in the chat.
okay. Yeah, so I teach German language. Typically, these are the quote unquote required courses. And so I try to start off with questions that I know that they're very familiar with, that I know that they know how to answer, you know, and just work from there. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And then I see Stephen, I ask opinion questions. Love it. Yes. Like something there's no wrong answer to. Enter the class in that way. You just want to create like an entrance. I love low stakes icebreakers. So good. Amazing. So just think about again, like think about how you are going to set your classroom up where your students are feeling immediately a sense of competence. Love the peer time. Amazing. I want to heart all of them. And yeah, sharing purpose. I love that. Sharing purpose and sharing values and sharing skills. So, so good, you guys. So, so good. And while you're thinking about competence, right? So your students enter your class with competence, and you also want them throughout class to feel a sense of autonomy, right? A sense of choice, an acknowledgement of feelings, an opportunity for self-direction or for self-determination. So this can look like choice readings, choice assignments. This can look like just like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you chose this space. But I'm going to stop the share for like 30 seconds. How do you facilitate a sense of autonomy in your students throughout your course? Or if you manage a program within your program, how do you give them choice? How do you give them self-direction? And someone can unmute and someone can put things in the
I give them a bunch of readings that I want to do this semester, a bunch of texts, and I just say which, take until the next class period to look these over and tell me which ones are really like doing it for you. Which ones do you really want to make sure that we cover this semester?
I love it. I love choice text. I love choice articles. And yeah, the competence can be hard, right? And I also have people who are retaking classes, and I always think about and I always ask, right? If you've seen this material before, what did you take with you the last time? And if it's nothing, it's nothing, right? If you didn't understand anything, that's totally fine. But what did you take with you? And if it's not like a lesson, it's a value or a feeling. So thinking about that as a way for an entrance way for competence. But I love competence and I love autonomy, right? When we think of college students, we really are tasked to make their time autonomous. They come out of college and they have all the choices in the world. And so it's really, really better that they end up knowing how to make decisions, knowing how to make choices, even little choices, which assignment to choose, which book to choose, so they can go on and make bigger choices as they move into the world. Go for it, Raj. And then I'm going to just talk about relatedness and end my spot.
I was just going to quickly say about autonomy. I'm trying this semester for the homework assignments to give students the option to do it individually or with other students in the class. I've also assigned them groups and they can work with their groups as well. So trying to make it as flexible as possible because there's some students who really do want to do it by themselves and others that might do better with a friend.
That is so cool, right? Thinking about like how they complete assignments. You could do it individually, you could do it in a group, you can do it pairs. So, so good. I love this. This is like the best lunchtime seminar crowd ever. And then thinking about, right, like you as an instructor or as a facilitator or as a developer of a program, thinking about providing autonomy support to your students, right? What types of teaching are going to facilitate their autonomy, right? How are you going to help them make choices? Do you use non-controlling language in your classroom and in your syllabi? How do you create an opening and a support for the autonomy you do give them? So thinking about that, it's almost like autonomy with responsibility. We can give our students lots and lots of autonomy, but as facilitators and instructors and as developers and creators of programming, we have to also provide our students with autonomy support. I think advisors do this so well if there's any advisors here, right? You're always creating this autonomy supportive environment. The last thing I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to end, is this sense of relatedness, right? We all know how important creating a positive classroom culture is, but we also have to know that the research says so as well. When students are feeling a sense of security and relatedness, and this goes for in-class spaces and online spaces and hybrid spaces and one-on-one spaces, they tend to increase in intrinsic motivation. So thinking about in your classroom, the relationship between you and your students, the relationship between the students and their classmates, right? The relationship between our whole class as a whole, whether it is online or hybrid or in person, is really important. So just thinking about and pausing this semester and thinking about how you will create relatedness, as well as how you will really think about as you walk into your classroom, facilitating intrinsic motivation and competence, autonomy, and relatedness. So think about it. Again, I always tell my students, like, think about it, bring it into your work. And then I will go to Christina.
Thank you so much, Gina. I loved that. That was so good. Okay, setting my timer. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about some practical application with cultivating autonomy in the classroom. And I also see some great questions already in the chat that I'm really excited for us to talk about in the Q&A because it's hard to support autonomy and then have very clear benchmarks. I feel that. So, one of the things that I do, and I'm going to give this to you, is I try to survey students to the extent that I can in the beginning of the semester, and the survey changes depending on the type of course we're in. Right now, I'm teaching a survey early in the morning, and the challenge with the survey is how do I cover it all? I'm covering hundreds of years in a very short span. And so, one of the things I ask them is which would you rather do? Would you rather do deep dives into fewer texts or topics, more time with each? Or read excerpts with more exposure to a range of authors and issues. And it was overwhelmingly like, yes, let's do deep dives. And I asked them this on the second day when we had started reading a story about Sky Woman falling. It's a Hidanasani and also Potawatomi and like many different indigenous tellings, different versions. And so what I did in response to this was I said, okay, let's read two more translations of the same story because they're very different, and then we'll do a comparison. And so now they have this very deep, rich sense of storytelling as something that is alive and living. So they see that I'm like already responding to what they want to do. Um, the second thing that I did is because it's a survey, of course, there's like a textbook, and it's heavy. It's like also a bodybuilding class, apparently. And there are these sort of units provided by this great textbook. And I've put those units here. What would you like to spend more time reading? So that I could gauge students' interest. And so originally, my syllabus had just the titles of the units, which I'm gonna make even bigger for you to see. Okay, so like just like these titles of the units with nothing underneath. And then after I found out what they were interested in, I responded to that by filling in more and moving some of the units around a little bit to add a little bit more or take away a little bit based on their interests. And so we're still covering every unit. But what was interesting was learning that they wanted more Indigenous oral literature than they did civilizations in contact. Oops. What I did was, oh, if you're more curious about Indigenous people's perspectives in these encounters, instead of reading someone like John Smith, who told the Pocahontas story, right? Fun fact, nobody ever believed that it was real at the time of writing. Um, I was able to say, oh, what do you all think about us reading Indigenous perspectives of first encounters? And they were like, oh, yeah, that makes total sense. And then building the course a little bit differently based on their interests to show them that I'm responding in real time to what they're curious about. And one of the things that they do is also a digital project. And this is where the support comes in. So they're doing a mapping activity right now. I gave them this form this morning They put their names under group members, the project medium, what medium will your presentation take? What materials I could bring in for them next class. But then most importantly, support, right? We throw them into groups, but are we giving them like the scaffolding, the structure, the support that they need to be successful in those groups? And what I like about this is they have to break down the project into tasks and responsibilities and put their names next to them. Because then it becomes really clear who is stepping up too much and who needs to step up more. And it gives an accountability to the work, right? And a deadline of like, oh, I need to do this by next class. I need to do this by the presentation time. And so I'm going to hand this back to them next class when I give them time to work together so that they can cross off things that they've done and then keep adding to their task list for the next time. And then I collect that so that I can see the labor that was put in. And let me check my time. I have so much time, so I'm going to just show you one more piece, which is this. So in my syllabus, I'll make this bigger so it's easier to read. In my syllabus, I have my learning objectives on one side, and then students on the first day rewrote those learning objectives in their own words in student speak. And this criteria is what I'm going to use to evaluate whether the group was met those expectations in a satisfactory or unsatisfactory way. And before the anxiety peaks, what I did this morning was they met together in groups and then shared out. I put in the chat, like I had them talk with peers first and then share out what they talked about with the larger class. And I said to give you a sense of what satisfactory means, every single group who shared out today did a satisfactory job of demonstrating knowledge about and familiarity with the reading, showing that they thought about it. They did some analysis and showing through action and behavior their collaboration with their peer. So you all have already done satisfactory work, and this is the expectation for your group project. So of course, it never always goes to plan, and some people were absent. So lots and lots of follow-ups via email, like, hi, hello, here's your group. Here are the expectations again, your roles and responsibilities, and this person, I'll make up a name. I'll just say Raj because you're on my screen, Raj, wasn't here today. Could somebody catch him up to speed? Right? So that they have a sense of accountability to one another and I get the conversation started. So, without being as well versed in some of the motivation theory that Gina was talking about, I really focus a lot on autonomy because it can feel like we don't have choice in how we teach, but I find that there's actually a lot more wiggle room. And what happens for me is I'm so excited now to teach Indigenous perspectives of first contact because I've always taught the other side because that's what's in the textbook. And now I get to teach these super fun things that I'm pulling out from my work and my research, and I get to be a fun scholar, like doing my nerdy thing. So I'm like so excited and motivated to do that. And I'm doing way more work actually than I need to just because I'm excited about the material and trying to figure out, oh no, what can we do in a short period of time that will make sense? How is this connected? So it ends up just making me feel motivated and excited. And this is like why I went into the discipline, right? And they get to see that. That's it for me. Raj, did you have something?
Could I make a comment or a suggestion?
Sure.
I love the group activity, the sheet that you showed with the responsibilities. I think that really helps students to because you're giving them the responsibility to decide for themselves. One thing I've done in my capstone class is also add on top of that like a reflection. So like when you do complete something on time, what went well? How were you able to do that? And when you didn't, what went wrong and what will you do differently so you can make sure you get it done the next time?
I love
Um,
that. Yeah,
yeah,
I think there's definitely enough time on the presentation day that I could carve out time for them to do the reflection and hand it in. That's such a good idea. Thank you. Jose?
Sure. Thank you, Christina. I'm going to share my screen, and I have a couple of slides that I want to share with everyone. Let's see if I do this right. Okay. Is everyone able to see my screen? Awesome. Thank you. Sorry, my voice is a little low, but I'll do my best here. I'm going to follow up on Christina's storytelling. This is a project I've been working on for, over 10, 12 years, I believe now, on and off. And again, my name is Jose Diaz. I'm a guest here from City Tech. I am the Director of Academic Technologies and Online Learning, and we use the ATOL or A2L. And my email address is there. If anyone ever wants to reach out, I'll be happy to chit chat some more after my presentation. Let's see my slides. Oh, there we go. The tool that we use for digital storytelling is Adobe Express. And the reason why we use Adobe Express is because I have a media production background. Before becoming an instructional designer, I used to dabble in videos, and I used to love to tell stories through multimedia. And so I was I taught myself how to use Adobe Premiere, Adobe After Effects, all these fancy film editing tools. And a lot of them, they have a steep learning curve. And for a very long time, I stopped using digital storytelling just because of the difficulty of learning how to use these video editing tools. And when Adobe Express came out, I was blown away as to how easy it was for any student with zero background in video editing to just take the tool and pick it up in a 10-minute video tutorial that I had created for them. The other reason is CUNY has recently come to agreement with Adobe, and now it's available to all of us, faculty, staff, and students. So with your CUNY login, you can go to Adobe Express and log in and have access to Adobe Express. Adobe Express is pretty much similar to Canva. If anyone here has used Canva, Adobe Express, is also similar in the sense that you can create graphics, videos, and websites. And so, with the emergence of AI and the rug being pulled under our feet, uh, digital storytelling came back to me. I said, well, how can we reimagine the traditional paper-based assignment in the age of AI? And a lot of what Christina spoke before about scaffolding and chunking these tasks is pretty much the same here. In this case, digital storytelling. This graphic here shows, from the initial step one, coming up with an idea, writing a proposal, to doing the research, exploring, learning, writing a script, creating a storyboard, looking for images, videos, and audio that you can bring in. Just like if you're making a dish and you need all the right recipe mixed together, will create this great dish of a story, and that's your narrative. And then putting it all together, sharing it with the class, and getting feedback and reflecting on the experience amongst, again, what Gina mentioned, right? We want to create it in a safe place for everyone to share and inject new knowledge into the conversation. We are also looking at authentic assessments. We're seeing now that many of our students are, going to AI because most faculty members sometimes don't include the rules of what is acceptable, what is not acceptable in the classroom, and sometimes students are overwhelmed and they don't have time for 6, 7 papers. Maybe they're running a full load, for the finals. They usually tend to organize by which professor is stricter on the deadline and also reducing points or deducting points. And that's commonly done by students when there is a strict deadline. And so, again, scaffolding a semester-long project into smaller tasks that could be achievable. And then within each task, you are providing that feedback to your students and you're encouraging authentic assessments. And by that, I mean, just remember that first time you had to learn how to drive and you had to pass that test. You're getting in that car and you're showing your instructor that you know how to drive that car. And that's what we're expecting here from our students, is to tell us what they've learned. Right here at the bottom, I just added a quick checklist tool that Brightspace offers, and it could help break down all these steps so that students can check off, okay, now I came up with the idea, I have a title for my paper, check it off. And that's a dopamine kick to our brain. Once you check something off, you're like, oh, I completed something, and it leads you to the end goal that we're all trying to get to. And there is a sense that we're going to complete something together. I'm going to move over to my last slide. And these are just some resources that, that I found through the years that are really helpful. Adobe has a great tutorial. I create my own because if I'm going to make the students do something, I want to be able to do it myself. So when I create these assignments, my tutorial is basically my own tutorial using Adobe Express. University of Dayton has a great website on digital storytelling tutorials. Our friends in Canada, the Learning Portal is a great resource where you can go in there and they'll give you, oh my gosh, amazing resources that you can borrow and use. And for myself, what I've done through the years is whenever I work with a faculty member that has adopted digital storytelling into their classroom, I ask them to contribute to the OER, the Open Educational Resources, right? So they'll contribute to the instructions that they created. They'll contribute the tutorial that they created, the rubric, and all of that comes together into a package that I then share with other faculty members. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. But the beauty about it is that we all have ownership of this amazing project. We all contribute as a community of practice. And with that, my last slide, I just want to share that at City Tech, I'm trying to form a group, and this is open to all CUNY. Just like Angela mentioned earlier, we all are under CUNY. We should all work together. And so this is a little project that I'm working on, is to get our students to tell their stories. As we see history being erased in many situations in the climate that we're in now, we're trying not to forget our history. And New York City is a melting pot. We all come from all different nationalities, and we should remember where we came from and our history behind that. And for me, I grew up hearing stories from my mom, my grandparents, and these are amazing stories that get passed on out to my kids. And so there's nothing more powerful than having a voice. And that's something that we need to teach our students nowadays, that they have a power, and that's their voice, and to be able to tell their stories, whether through poetry, dance, multimedia, video, etc. And I'll end there and I'll pass it on to, I'm not sure who's the next person. I think it's Lena.
Angela,
Oh, sorry,
thank
Angela.
you.
Thank you. No worries. Angela and Lena back. I can hear that. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Jose. That was great. I like the digital telling stories too, because I learned a lot of that when I was at LaGuardia Community College, and we were doing our first year seminar. And it's, students are like, oh, dragging their feet about doing it, but when you guide them through the process and at the end you can see they put so much more effort than you even asked for, because they're talking about themselves. So that's one of the things that I keyed in with today's talk, was autonomy and making it about the student. You're already the expert in your field. It's not about you and how much you know and how much you can explain to them. It's how to raise them up and elevate them to that level so that they can explain it to you and explain it to each other and explain it to others. So I really focused on autonomy, and I draw a lot from Carol Dweck with the growth mindset. And so a lot of my assignments has is always with that background. It's always, that you know everybody can improve just a little bit. You don't have to, jump hurdles. You can just take a step. You did much better if you did nothing yesterday. That is 100% win. So it's always celebrating what we can do. I'm always telling my students and myself and my kids, yeah. Stop worrying about what you can do. What can we do right now? Right? You got to be very pragmatic about the situation, because I can sit here and whine and cry about how many deadlines I have and whatever. Yeah. But what can I do right now? What can I do right now? And that's really what the situation is. That's my motivator. What can we do right now? I went from teaching 20 students where I can interact and walk down the aisle in the lab room and speak to the students, but now I got thrown into teaching 70 students. What can I do right now to still engage every single one of them? And guess what? I still do, and then when I do my seminars for PPAPs, that's the pre-health office, there's 300 people and it's online and it's virtual. Prior to the pandemic, I would have never imagined myself engaging with 300 students. And here it is. Now I am. And again, it goes back to growth mindset. I have one, the students can have one. My students walk in thinking that, all they need is a 4.0. And then by the time they leave that PPAP, they're like, oh yeah, I need to study with others. And again, they don't know what they want. They don't know what they want, and they don't know what they need. They know what they want. They just don't know how to get what they want, because they're coming from K through 12, where everyone told them what they needed, what they wanted. So you start off with that extrinsic motivation. It's ingrained in them for 12, 13 years of their life to be extrinsic learners. And all of a sudden in the college level, we're saying, oh, you have to find your thought, your voice, your this, huh? I haven't been doing that. Just last year, they were asking their parent or guardian to sign a trip slip. Now we're telling them to go to the museums by themselves. You're asking a lot of me, lady. And then you're doing all of this all at once. Slow down. Everybody needs to slow down. You, me, the students, you're going to get there. So it's all about the autonomy, or not all about the autonomy, but the autonomy plays a strong part. And I am going to share my screen as soon as I pull up my slides. Okay, let's see. Let's see if I can get this going on fairly smoothly. So to 12:41, I probably got like 7 minutes. And that's all I need. And that's all I need. Okay. So you should be able to see everything on my desk. If you want to know what Angela's thinking, look at her desktop. And that's what you will understand what's going on in this under all of this hair. So now we go to our slideshow. I'll play from start. And so I am Angela Padilla. I'm someone who loves teaching. I love teaching STEM, mostly because people don't think that they can do it, or they don't want to do it. And I teach physics, and I'm like, yes, I don't want to teach the students who already know they can do it. I want to teach the students that aren't sure. That's my target audience. And again, you have to know your audience. Not that I don't teach to the A's and the B's, but my focus are those F's, D's, and C's. If I can raise them up, guess what? The A's and the B's are going to be well supported with their learning journeys. So that's how I approach teaching. I'm the academic resource director of the Science Learning Center. We support biology, chemistry, organic chemistry, and physics. I'm also an adjunct lecturer in the physics and astronomy department, and an associate for Project Fresh. This is our first year program for first year retention and equity in STEM at Hunter College. So we're so excited where we have STEM Saturdays, where we have students come in from 10 to 5. And now we've expanded it from 10 to 7 to spend all day Saturday just working on STEM to help them build their stamina, because they say they're going to do it at home, but they won't. Here it is. They'll eat lunch. So there's no reason to go home. Oh, I'm hungry. I need to go home. No. You're not leaving. Oh, I can't make it in time because I didn't have breakfast. No. We have that too. So that's part of it. You have to make it easy for them to do it. You can't give them a large assignment and say, okay, if you look on the chemistry syllabus, it says study 15 hours. Oh my gosh. Most students study by themselves. So 15 hours might be sustainable for the first 2 weeks. And after that, it becomes for the birds. So here, we've got half of that studying done, build that stamina, and then they're like, okay, now you've motivated them because you've gotten them through some basic homework problems. Now, when they're home and on their own, they feel that they can do it through the autonomy, and they'll practice on their own more. Because when you look at a problem, if you're trying to study by yourself and you see, you can stare at it for 3 hours and still not know what's going on. So you've just downed their autonomy. They don't feel that they can do it. It seems too difficult. It seems too hard. Guess what? I'll do something that I can do. Right? Because that I can get an A in that English comp because I've been taught how to reflect more on English literature than I have with the STEM, right? Because at the STEM level in high schools, a lot of time they don't teach autonomy and thinking. It's more through getting through that test, getting through that regents, not being more like an integrated learner. So be mindful of that. And that's even everything, even the chemistry. I mean, the English class here is not the same as the English in 12th grade, even if you were in honors. So what types of assessments do you do and that you enjoy evaluating? Ask yourself that question. What do you like to grade? I don't like to grade a lot of things, right? Because especially like if it's just right or wrong. So guess what? That's the time for an auto-graded quiz. If I want to see what students have learned and really how they've integrated the learning to myself, then I'm going to have a writing assignment or something else or some sort of presentation. So you have to ask yourself these questions. And again, we have academic freedom. We just need to make sure that you make sure that the students understand these points and that we're going up the Bloom's taxonomy level where they're not just knowing and understanding, they're creating and evaluating, right? We want to get them to that level. So if we're teaching towards that level, what different ways can we do to get to that level? So, test quizzes, auto-graded, writing assignments, essays, abstracts, and papers. Presentations. I love presentations to replace a paper sometime, right? Then I don't have to read it, and then I can see what the student knows. I can ask them right there on the spot. Then the other students get to understand what's going on because they're hearing it from somebody else's perspective versus just me. So there's too much going on with the presentation. I so love them. I wish we had time to do them all the time, right? And discussion boards, videos, discussion boards, posts, Teams forum and Google Forms. I have heavily relied on this for large classes. The survey. Oh my goodness, there's just so much fun in the survey. And then try increasing your assessments by one. Whatever you do, if you can add one more or change one that you do, then you also have to make it autonomous for you, right? You also have to do what you like and make yourself feel capable that you can accomplish this in a semester with the amount of students that you have. So keep yourself in mind. Be protective of yourself and your time and your sanity, and provide students with the choice in one or two of the assignments or within an assignment is what I mean. So perfect thing here, I have an abstract. We all know the abstract, boring. Introduction, background, methods, what was your question, what was your data, what was your results, conclusion, did you do the assignment right? Right? And now let's move forward. Where do you want to take that last question? So you provide, first of all, a clear rubric and template. We've been doing these things for years. We kind of assume that the student knows because we put it in our syllabus, and we assume that because we gave the syllabus and we told the students that they're always going to keep that in memory. They're still learning the habit. So you have to remind them. You don't have to. I mean, but it would be nice. If you want better assignments, then you would want to build that habit. So teaching is not just telling them what to do, but it's showing it how to do it and modeling it for them and helping them build that habit. You are the scaffold. And then eventually you don't have to do it anymore. So you do it the first month, then they'll start getting used to it. And also just keep it there for the students that didn't catch up yet. What does it hurt you? What does it cost that extra couple of pages to put a rubric in every time and go through it every time? It helps everybody. From today to yesterday, I don't remember what happened. So please help enlighten me. Then I add 3 prompts for the discussion portion, right? So if you had more time, how would you improve your yield for the science experiment? How would you do better for your percent errors? Or where is today's physics concept used in real world applications, everyday use? Or what strategy or concept did you learn that is relevant to the actual lecture? So now they have a choice. What do you want to what do you want to answer? And again, if you make it more about them and their interests, they're more likely to put more effort, better effort into it versus, oh, this is what she's making me do. Reading through the assignment is a more enjoyable experience when naturally you'll put more effort into your interests, is my point, right? Because if you're giving them assignment that they enjoy doing, when it's time for you to grade it and look over it and review it, you're going to enjoy it too, because you're like, yes, that was it. That was good. Oh, I didn't think about it that way. So you need to make students feel that they can accomplish a task, anything. You give this whole research paper at the beginning of the semester, and it's like 2 or 3 pages long. I'm not even going to look at it. Start me off little. What can I do? Oh, I can get 5 references. Start off with that. Scaffold these assignments. Once they have it, because that's usually the hardest part, right? is to getting those references and then having them do the annotated bibliography, right? Now they have some contents. Why did you choose this one over that one? Blah, blah, blah. Develop your question. Help them develop. They don't know how to do it. And even if they know how to do it, they don't have a lot of practice doing it. So it's not in their habits to do it. So you have to help them build that habit. So that's part of being a good leader. You want them to do it, so make it easier for them to do it. Provide rubrics and templates. Give a purpose. Why are we doing this? Not just because it's on the syllabus, but how does this relate? Can you integrate this? Where are you going to need to do research again later? Where are you going to learn how to write later? I understand you guys don't like physics. You guys are bio majors in chemistry, but remember, the strategies that you use here are applicable and transferable. The skills that you learn here, quantitative reasoning and critical thinking, that is applicable into your organic lab, whatever. So keep that in mind. Ask students to integrate their skills, interests, and goals with your current assignment. Model how you would do the same. Why are we doing this? Always go give them a purpose. Otherwise, it just seems like busy work and I'm just doing this for a grade. And then if you're just doing it for a grade, then that is extrinsic motivation. You want them to take ownership of it. With simple tasks, true or false questions in the classroom. Okay, what chapter are we on today? Real simple. Okay, I know that. And once nobody wants to be wrong. So they don't answer anything. So you drag them in pull them in with something that they can answer. Give them true or false, this or that type of questions. And then give students time to respond. Restate the question while you're giving them time to respond because maybe they didn't understand it. Ask someone else in the classroom. Repeat what I just said in your words. You're going to catch somebody some way. We tend to teach in our way of learning, but guess what? We have a multitude of learners, so we have to be fair or try to be more fair, right? Be more mindful. Ask students to read. Then you point, allow students to feel. So my point was you want to allow them to feel confident. If they feel safe in your class, right? Going back to you want them to engage, they have to feel safe that their thoughts are valued. And you always remind them too. I don't expect you to know everything. If you knew everything, then what am I here for? We can pack up and go. No, you're supposed to be wrong, but I'd rather you get it wrong in class and while we're studying, do an office hour than you to find out after the assessment was due, too late. Be very pragmatic with them. Demonstrate that learning is a process. So when you ask these baby questions, seemingly baby questions that they should know, you're modeling that this is a process. We're not just going to get to the answer of this big word problem. Let's ask some basic things. What equation do we need? What concepts do we know? Break it down for them. Help them see it. And then it becomes, then when they're home on their own, they remember what they did in class, hopefully. And then they'll try it on their own. You want them to want to learn. But for them to want to learn, they have to see that they actually can learn, not being so 1 minute. Okay, good. So that's my whole thing was really about building that autonomy. And since we know it, right? Autonomy, mastery, purpose, you want to relate to what students care about, redefining skills, grades as with skills. And there was one thing I did really want to show you, I can always go on forever, right? You start off external, go to the intrinsic, but the thing that I wanted to show you is that when you do, like for people who hold on, let me escape this. And I just want to show you guys one thing on, Again, with these million windows. What happened here? I lost my Firefox. Oh, no, I didn't. So here I have 300 people here. Oh, no, pardon me, 217. I go to my choices, and this is STEM study skills. And they all want to be pre-health, pre-med, and I ask them a basic question: what type of skills do they need? All of these skills. Everybody's big on communication, effective communication, active listening, empathy. All of these things are high, top marks. Then when I ask these students, who do they work with? Okay, who do I work with? Most of them say by myself. And I pull that up and show them. I said, there's a disconnect here. And these are things that you can do in groups of 5, 10, 200. So my purpose here is that autonomy and making it about themselves, helping students integrate what you're trying to show them and show them how what you're teaching them today is not irrelevant. Maybe the specific facts are, but the skills and strategies that you're trying to teach here can be used anywhere. And thank you so much.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, everybody. I love that last, right? Like students want to learn this, but then they want to learn this, and they really do have to connect with others. I love that. It also goes into career competencies so well, too. So, so good. Amazing. Well, Lena is sharing all of our incredible links in the chat with regards to ACERT and faculty fellows. Come apply, as well as writing groups and our lunchtime seminars. But I think we have